When I get my contracts, I firmly believe in being a company that we got to pay on a weekly, if not a bi-weekly basis. You know, I that's it. I can't do the whole paid when paid thing. I can't do the whole, hey, I'm going to turn my payroll in on the 21st or the 25th of the month. And then
welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real construction owners doing big things. Today, we have a very special guest, Austin Montgomery, the owner of The Roof Co., specializing in all things roofing and crushing it in government contracts. We're going to be going over investments, painful lessons. We're going to be going over the ins and outs of government contracts and a lot of high-level things. So today, you're going to definitely want to listen in, so stay tuned. What's up, Austin? How you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm truly blessed and I'm highly favored.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you're out of Waco, Texas, just south of me in Austin, Texas. Man, we got to get together sometime.
Dude, I'm telling you, we need to. I know you're traveling a lot too, but next time you're back in the Central Texas area, hit me up. We can get together. So
hey, you're a faith-filled family man. Same with me. You got two little kids just like me, and I got a nice big house out here in Costa Rica. I'm going to go ahead and drop it. You're invited. I got an extra room for your whole family and you.
Man, I'm down for that.
Let's go. Hey, man. So before we get started in the actual technical goods that people want to know about success, government contracts, the ins and outs, talk to our audience. Tell us your story. Walk us down memory lane. What were you doing before you started this, and how'd you get where you're at today?
Man, so it's I've had a long journey for a young man as myself. I feel like I'm getting old, but I've been in the roofing and construction industry going on 17 years now. And I just turned 33 yesterday. So it's a lot of people are like, man, what the heck? Like, how'd you get your start so early? And it was all because my dad, my 8th grade summer going into high school, he was like, hey, if you want to work, come to work. And he was working for a big roofing outfit here in Central Texas, and a big commercial roofing contractor. They do about 30-40 million a year. So, so I got my start there, pretty much worked every day after high school, and all throughout the summer in commercial roofing. And I worked for that company for about 10 years, and I worked pretty much from the ground up. My dad brought me in and he's like, hey, you're going to start out in the field, picking up shingles, picking up debris, whatever it is. You're going to be on a crew. You're going to do manual labor hard. You're going to learn, every step of the way. And then I worked my way into the sheet metal shop, learning how to break sheet metal. Then I went into repairs, superintendent, then estimating, and all kinds of, pretty much went through every department that I could go through to learn every step of the way. So I got a really good hands-on. A lot of guys get their hands dirty in residential starting out. And I got my hands dirty starting out in commercial. And I almost had to learn the residential side of things more than I did the commercial, because that's just what I was, raised in. And so that company, we did a lot of commercial work as far as like schools, military bases, stuff like that. So I got a good grasp on doing that. The one holdback I had is we were a big contractor, like the number one contractor for a specific manufacturer. So that's really all I knew. I knew a little bit of metal, and I knew that one membrane manufacturer like the back of my hand. And so I was kind of like drank the Kool-Aid for a long time with that product. And then once I left that company, I started the roofing company, the roofing division of my family's business. Ran that company for about 6 years. And then, we decided to part ways. They wanted to scale back and go back to being a little bit smaller, doing more residential than anything. And they didn't really like the commercial and the government contracts and all the headaches that came with it. But I live in chaos. And as you know, government contracts can be filled full of chaos. And the commercial world can be chaos. And My wife and I decided December of 2020 that we were going to step out in faith and start our own company. And so that's what we did. So I put her as the full 100% owner of the company. I'm just an employee is all I am. She's my boss, outside of work and inside of work. So I work for her, but we put her as 100% owner for women-owned purposes and stuff like that. But yeah, so we've been running our company now for about we're going on to this December will be 2 years, and man, it's going strong.
Love to hear that. So you basically got in the trenches. You were sweating. You were putting in the work. Then you moved your way up to doing repairs. Then you did superintendent, and you learned all the trades. And that's so important. A lot of companies are just paper pushers. There's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that. But whenever you're looking to grow a business, if you have a leader like yourself who can teach it, that's a recipe for success. Love to hear that.
2022, it's been a year of ups and downs, but in construction, you can boom as long as you're willing to get out there. Talk to us. What did 2022 look like in terms of residential government contracts? How did it all lay out?
Man, honestly, 2022 has been a great year. We doubled our revenue compared to last year. And we've got a lot of government contracts. And when I say government, there's different types of government, right? You got federal contracts, you've got municipalities like schools, counties, cities, stuff like that. And we actually just got one of our first military base jobs not too long ago. It's not something I heavily pursued right off the bat, but we've done several government jobs as far as municipalities. It's been really good. I feel like there's a lot of entities, municipalities that are looking for good contractors. They're looking for contractors that are very dynamic. And I think that's a piece that a lot of contractors missing is the dynamics of being able to, I saw the writing on the wall with 2021 as far as material shortages. We bought up a lot of materials, put in our warehouse before the prices started increasing and everything like that. But I also kind of waited it out too on buying more because I kind of saw the decline in work going down. I kind of watched the trends of the weather and everything and saw that we didn't really have a bunch of storms. Work started slowing down, and I've talked to several suppliers. They're like, man, are you busy? I'm like, yeah, bro, we're booked out the rest of the year. And they're like, man, there's contractors that aren't doing anything right now. And so I just kind of watched the trends very carefully. I didn't fall for the hype. And now we're fortunately starting to see some prices come down a little bit, which is good. But it was just being patient and sticking to my guns and going after the work that we know we can go after and be successful.
When you say going after the work you can go after, every company has a success ratio, especially when you're dealing with government and federal. For my company, it's 1 out of 25 bids I turn in, we get a contract. Talk to us. What's your ratio? Do you have that?
I'd say our ratio is, let me preface this that, I'm going to step back a little bit. Most of my work is referral based, word of mouth. Being that I've been doing this so long, I get calls on a daily basis. Hey, we want you to do this. We want you to do that, whatever it may be. And 9 times out of 10, if it's a referral based job, if I've been referred to that business, then I would say 90% of the time I'm going to get that job.
Yeah.
Even if it's a municipality that I've been referred to, I'm going to walk them through the steps. That's the big thing is a lot of municipalities are not educated on, being able to go through co-ops to get their jobs done. And once we educate them on going through co-ops, and they can bypass the whole three bid type phase, then, usually we're locking that thing in and we're good to go just because we built a rapport and a relationship with that municipality. So, I would say if it's bid invite stuff, man, that's a hard game. Not a hard game, but it's a game I don't like playing just because there's a lot of contractors out there that bid stuff for, they're working for 10, 15%. And I'm like, man, I ain't all about that. I'd rather go for the negotiated work and the work that I know I can make, 30, 40% on. And I hate going after bid work.
Yeah, I personally like to go after remote jobs that are in the middle of
Yep,
nowhere in America, because I
yep,
know less competition is going to bid it, and I can put a way healthier margin, more than 30, 40, 50%.
yeah.
Get in and get out and, make our money. So with that being said, we got contractors who want to get into government contracts, and whether it's local or out of state. Let's talk about subcontractors. How do you find, well, right now you're well established, so you have a book of subcontractors, but when you're first getting started, what are some strategies you use to find quality subcontractors?
Man, you know, I've been, you talk about lessons earlier. What are the lessons I've been through? I've been through really good contractors, and I've been through the ringer on contractors. I've probably lost more money than I've made going through bad contractors, subcontractors, I should say. A lot of them talk a lot of good game, but when it comes time to perform at the end of the day, that's where the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
I've learned to just trust my gut to know that I can ask specific questions about a job, and depending on how they answer that, depends on if I know they're either BSing me or, hey, they actually know what they're talking about.
Yep.
And the other thing too is like, the subcontract world, with labor and stuff like that, it gets very difficult. You got a lot of guys from the Northeast that try to come down here in the southern states, and a lot of those guys up there are union, right? They're getting paid union wages. And I see a lot of these guys talk about, well, prevailing wage, prevailing wage for Fort Hood, Texas for a roofer is like $15 an hour. If you really want me to pay prevailing wage, let's talk about prevailing wage. But you go to Florida and it's $45 an hour,
Right.
or whatever it may be. I don't know the exact, but it's in that range. And it's being able to educate those guys on what a lot of those guys don't realize the economics of what we can actually bid jobs at. They think at the end of the day, as the company, the prime, that we're making all this money, but really, if we don't bid it competitively with local wages, we're going to be beat out every day. You can't bring the wages from the Northeast and bring them right here in Central Texas, because you'll get beat out every time.
Talking about wages, that's something you're the first person that's brought that up on our podcast. Whenever you're looking at government documents, you see that it has a wage page. It says like the wages and the fringes, and you're a contractor, so you can see, okay, this sub's probably going to need 4 men, probably, 5 days a week for 2 weeks, X amount of dollars. How do you figure out the math of what you should budget before you talk to that sub?
Yeah, so that's what you just explained is exactly how I do it. But that's the cool thing about me, and probably yourself as well, is like, I've been in the field. I know what it should take to put that roof on, and how many days and how many guys, how much I can accomplish, with a crew if I was doing it with my hands on. And so I'll say like, all right, X amount of days for these guys, for this amount of crew, and then I'll put a profit percentage on top of those hours, right?
For the subcontractor. For the
subcontractor.
So
right.
You've got the wages, then you've got the fringes. You add
Yep.
those two, and then you figure out how many men it is times how many days times how many hours, and you put a profit on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I put a profit on it, and then also the per diem and stuff like that. If they're having to travel out of town, and it depends on what type of job it is, what crew I'll use. Luckily I've got a good establishment of guys here locally, where they don't have to usually travel. But if it is guys that I feel like I need to bring from out of town, or they got to stay the night or something, I'll include, the travel for that as well. And I'll put a little bit of profit on top of that.
I'm curious because I have a gold mine of 8As, hub zones, Native Americans, where I'm a trusted resource to help them facilitate their jobs. What do you specialize in?
Man, so that's the cool thing about me is I've diversed myself in everything, from building metal structures to interior remodels, ground ups. At my previous company, we built some of the structures on Fort Hood, the weld up structures. We've done a lot of welding on Fort Hood. We've done the light gauge trusses, metal decking, all that good stuff. We've done a lot of that, so I can kind of be an all-in-one turnkey package for people. And I've got a wide variety of healthy subcontractors that I can bring in to do other work. I don't really get into any kind of MEP, but if it's finished work, structural stuff like that, we get into it. But what we really specialize in is the roofing side, and it's mainly single ply, any kind of metal, soffits, fascias. I don't really get into any hot work. That's one thing that I don't do, is I don't do any hot work, and I don't do any spray foam. Those are ones I don't like to do. I'll do coatings, but I don't like doing spray foam, and I don't like doing any kind of hot work.
Why not?
Unless it's
just curious.
Man, just finding the guys that can actually still do it and do it right.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. And the liability on top of it too is it's pretty astronomical.
So we're still on the topic of subcontractors. Let's go a little bit deeper. Have you called your tactics? Have you called suppliers to find your subcontractors? Have you used agc.org or abc.org to find quality subcontractors? Tell us.
So, man, honestly, I've used Facebook for years to find subcontractors. Basically just networking through other roofing contractors. Like, hey man, do you got a crew for this? Hey, do you got a crew for that? And I've learned, which contractors are good contractors, are subcontractors. I've learned, which guys are just the brokers. A lot of them say they have a crew, but they're just a broker, the middleman. And man, I've been through that ringer several times. And man, you just got to wade through the waters to find that, eventually find the right guys and be able to ask the right questions. And, the one question I ask some of these guys sometimes is like, all right, if these are your guys, are they W-2 or are they 1099? What are they? Are they on your payroll? And, do you have full control, of your crew, to say like, hey, when I tell you to jump, or are they going to say, well, we couldn't make it today because we're on another job and you're just a middleman type guy. So I can't tell you how many times I've been through that.
That's really good information right there. Now, regarding negotiating with subs, we all have a story where a sub wanted this, but you wanted to pay this. How did you get that, what you needed, where they still felt like it was a win? Do you remember the scripts or what you said to that sub?
And so that's, I honestly have to do this a lot with some of my guys. Sometimes I have to, social media can be a good thing. It can be a really bad thing, because like a lot of my Central Texas guys, labor crews, they'll see guys from up north saying, hey, we need $400 a square, for this simple recover or whatever. They're just outlandish numbers. And I have to break it down. I have to go back to the estimating piece of it with my guys. And I'm like, all right, bro, if you have 5 guys, your cost is X a day. I've got this much in it for the job. You should be able to do this job in X amount of time, paying your guys this, and you should be able to make X amount of dollars on top of that. Right.
Yep.
And so, I have to almost reverse engineer the budget to show them like, hey, if you actually do this job and you do it on time, like I'm saying, then you should be able to make X amount of dollars, which is a decent profit margin. Because I usually figure like a good 30% margin for those guys, and that's a healthy margin, for them to make. Sometimes that's more than us, as the prime on some of my jobs. And then there's sometimes I just work with my guys and I'm like, depending on what crew it is, I pay them a day rate. Like I have my head guy and I say, hey, look, for however many guys you have on site, I'll pay you X amount of dollars a day per man. Whatever you pay your guys past that, that's on you. So if you want to pay them X amount and you get paid this amount, then you make that much money every day. And that's been a really good tactic that I've done, because a lot of these guys, depending on what caliber of subcontractor they are, as far as where they're established, as far as if they are a company or if they're just like a 1099 labor crew type guys, I pretty much pay him plus every individual on there, but I'm paying him, but he's actually getting a wage every day, right? plus he's making whatever he's making on top of each guy. And that's where a lot of these guys don't understand sometimes, that they look at the end numbers, they're not actually paying themselves per day. They're not paying themselves a wage. They're just taking whatever profit, and that's what they made on it. So I try to actually pay them a wage plus a profit.
I love that. Now, with some of these guys, big issue government contractors face is when dealing with subs is getting their certified payroll reports in on time, because that delays you, the government contractor, to get your money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what processes do you have in place to ensure that you get your payroll reports from your subs?
We employ them for each those specific jobs.
Elaborate on that, please.
Temporary employment, basically. So they come on, they hire on with us as W-2 employees for that job. That way we can control the certified payroll.
That's smart. You want to elaborate a little bit further, like for somebody who's never heard that?
Yeah, so basically what we do is we hire those guys on at whatever wage rate we have established for that job. We take care of, all their training, their safety training, their tools, all that good stuff on the job. And then, there's still the head guy that's of the leader of the crew. He comes on as a employee as well, and basically at the end of the day, he gets a bonus at the end of the job. So whatever the budget is for that job, if it's a $20,000 budget, by the time we figure all the payroll that's into it and everything like that, whatever's left from the job, that's what they get for their bonus, their performance bonus type thing. So I found that works really well, because then you don't have to worry about them doing their own certified payroll. You're more in control for it. And you're not relying on somebody else to do it.
I've done a lot of contracts and coached a lot of people to win contracts, and that's the first time I've heard that. That's some wise words right there. Where'd you learn that?
Honestly, I just kind of thought about it on my own. I was like, man, instead of worrying about these guys, doing it for me, or relying on them to do their certified payroll, just, hey man, won't you just come on as a temporary W-2 employee? We'll pay you, just like you are an employee, right? And we'll take care of the payroll. And then just like we give our full-time in-house guys, bonuses and stuff like that, we're going to give you a bonus at the end of the job.
So subcontractors, what they want. They want the easiest, low-hanging, get in, get out, just let me go in and do my work. I don't want to do the paperwork. So if I was a subcontractor at the other end of the line, and you were talking to me about coming to work for you using that methodology, how am I going to get paid, Austin? How would you explain it to me?
Basically, man, I see it all the time. When I get my contracts, I firmly believe in being a company that, we got to pay on a weekly, if not a bi-weekly basis. That's it. I can't do the whole paid when paid thing. I can't do the whole, hey, I'm going to turn my payroll in on the 21st or the 25th of the month. And then when I get my money, I'll pay you. It just doesn't work that way. So I've got to have my finances in order to be able to fund that project, and pay my guys on a weekly, if not a bi-weekly basis. It makes things so much smoother. They don't have to worry about, hey, am I going to get paid this week? Or, you don't have anybody complaining about it. That's how I try to set it up. Is every job perfect? No. I don't think there is a perfect job. I don't think there's, anything that's just easy about everything, contracting. And so, does it suck for us as the prime sometimes? Yeah, we got to pay out a lot of money, but, we got to make sure we have that cash flow covered. But at the end of the day, we got to keep jobs going too.
So. Yeah. That's interesting, because I always do paid when paid, unless it's like the best guy in town and I need him to do my job. And he's like, hey, when I get there, I require my deposit. I'm sure you've heard when they're like, hey, I want half down and half upon completion. You're like, dude, I can't give you half down. Like, the government hasn't given me any money yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had that several times. They're like, hey, I want $10,000 to mobilize or whatever it may be. And I just, man, I don't use those guys. You know, they have to understand that, you know, there's a level of trust between the two of us. Obviously our neck is more on the line than anything because we've got a performance and payment bond on the job.
Yep.
You know, and so they're gonna get paid, right? Or else we're in trouble. But who's to say I give you $5,000, $10,000, whatever amount of money it may be for you to mobilize, then you run off or whatever. And I'm just not gonna take that risk of doing that. And if you've truly been in the contracting world, you should know that the government or any kind of commercial contracting doesn't give a deposit
Right.
in most circumstances. And so I'm like, you know, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not.
I
not the
agree.
way I work.
Those type of people you got to stay clear from. You know, it sounds like you've built a subcontractor database that's helped you succeed for a new contractor just getting started. What would you tell them about building a subcontractor database and how important it is?
It's super important, just because you know you've got to be able to know what guys are fit for what jobs. I know I take the performance of each crew and I look at it and analyze it and say, hey, these guys are going to be good for this job. These guys are not going to be fit for this job, right? And there's a level of detail you have to look at as far as you know, what are the aesthetics of the job? What is the appearance of the job? Is it a high profile job that everybody's going to be seeing, or is it a roof that's, you know, 200 feet up in the air that only one person a year is going to look at, right? You know, and I'm not saying that we lower our quality to a standard of, you know what I'm saying? It's that you've got to be able to look at that job and say, hey, 1,000 people are going to be walking by this roof every day. I've got to make sure that every little detail is like, I got to make sure
Perfect.
that the end laps, you know, the end of the seams for the standing seam are folded just right to, you know, and one's not crooked or whatever, you know, where 200 feet in the air, you're not going to see that, you know.
Right, right. It's so important to have that database. So you know, okay, Jose and George, these are going to be my two guys for this, and then so on and so forth for the other job. Now, I'm sure you've done this before, but you see something you like. There's been people who've went to the site visit. There's their name and numbers. Have you ever used that site visit list with the contractors who've already been there to try to find the sub and weed through the primes to try to get the price of the sub? Have you ever done that before?
Man, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't.
So
No.
I'd love to tell you a story, but to keep it short and concise, there was a job once, it was in New York, and there was a sign-in sheet, and there were like 15 people on it who drove 2 hours, 3 hours to get to this location. And
Yeah.
it was the day before it was due. I pounded the phone. Hey, are you a prime or are you a sub on this? I found the sub, got the price. Hey, who else should I be calling? Who can do that excavation? Who can do that, you know, electrical? And two subs gave me everybody I needed. 3 hours later, I had every detail I needed for that and won the contract.
Yeah.
Without having to go to a site visit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I've never had to do that. Of course, most of the time, like I'm bidding to, you know, a jock, which is the prime. I'm the prime roofing contractor, you know, so tier one sub. You know, but as far as when it comes to you know, competitive bid where it's multi-trade or something like that, I've never had to do that.
right on. One little tactic, curious how you're getting reviews for your construction company, because your company is looking real good online. I'm curious, what are you doing?
Honestly, it's something we're not good at. It's something that we haven't focused on as far as reviews to our company. You know, it's not something we've had a good grasp on. You know, getting people to write us reviews. We've had some, but it's something that we definitely need to get better at. Honestly, you know, we've had an exponential amount of growth in the last 2 years, and we've had a lot of realizations of things that we need to focus on, and operations is one of them. Operations and organization is one of them, and so we've been heavily invested this last quarter. We've spent I think we'll spend about 30 or 40 grand in new operations and organizational softwares to keep our company running optimally and more efficiently. And so, we haven't, that is next on our list, to start working on more efficient ways to get reviews to our company. But then again, too, like I said, we work for a lot of GCs, and most GCs aren't going to go write us a review type thing.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised if you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Bob, I just did that job. I had a pleasure working with you. I just gave you a 5-star review. If you go to Google, you'll see that I wrote some nice sentences about you. I'd love to see if you can do the same. I just text you the link. When can you get that done?" That's how I get my reviews.
Really? I've never thought about doing that. So I'll try that. I'll see if I can get one of them to do it for me. I'll try it out.
Don't try, just do it.
Do it.
Yeah, leave a review before you call the guy, and then say, "Hey,
Gotcha.
I just sent you a screenshot. Look at what I said about you. I'm also sending you the link right now. Please, let's spend a couple of minutes. Leave me a 5-star review." And they're like, "Sure, brother."
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'll do it.
It's called forcing action, where you get it done. But there's a lot we could share, but I want to focus on you right now. So now let's talk and move into the federal construction secrets section. This is where we talk about a lot of high-level tactics. Curious, when you started out, you didn't have bonding. Now you have bonding. What were the things you did to increase your bonding? Did you ever get your subs to bond back jobs to give your bonding company no risk? What did you do to increase your bonding?
Man, honestly, I was very fortunate when we started our company. The bonding company, and I'll say this, a lot of people think, your target audience is people who want to get started in federal contracting. They may work for a roofing company, their employees, whatever. They may be a sales rep, and they're eventually want to start their own thing, right? The key to success is relationships, right? When I was running a company for somebody else, I established a relationship with our banker that was for that company. I established a relationship with the bonding company for that company, right? And so even though it wasn't my company, I still established a relationship, and they knew, the banker and the bonding company both knew what I was capable of. So when I started my company with zero assets, with zero work in place, I talked to my bonding company, I talked to my banker, I said, "Hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm gonna start my own company, and I'm going to go after this work. You already know I've got a proven track record of the last 6 years of what I've been doing in commercial and government contracting." And literally my bonding company said, "Hey, we'll give you, right off the bat, just because of your name, we'll give you $1 million worth of bonding. We'll bond you up to $1 million." And since then, it's basically, being able to show my financials to the bonding company and say, "Hey, here's the job we need." But I try not to go after really, really big multi-million-dollar contracts. I really like those ones that are like, $200 to $500, or even sometimes $100,000 and less, because you can get in, get them out, get them done, get out of there. And so I really like those jobs. I think that's our optimal performance, is that sub 500. Now, can we do the jobs that are, 500 plus multi-million-dollar projects? Absolutely. Yeah, we can. We can do them all day long. They're just not the optimal. They're the ones that take a lot of time. You wait on your money for a lot of time, and, it's not an easy in and out type thing.
One of my members who joined Federal Construction University, he started off small, the 0 to 200, and he did a few of those. He liked them, but he's used to doing $1 million+ home builds. And he just secured $7 million in 2 different IDIQs. And he's like, "Man, this is easier. It's, we're just taking out doors, putting in doors like clockwork." And, but like you, I like to focus on the 0 to 300K. That's because there's less competition. You can get in and get out and make your money.
Yep.
So it sounds like you really do have a hold on relationships, and relationships, and how they've benefited your business and brought in wealth to you and your family. What are, besides being a great guy and just easy to talk to and like down to earth, what are things you're doing to keep those relationships, as a top of mind?
Yeah. Um, it's really being intentional, and I had to teach myself to be intentional. For the longest time, I was very personable. I could go out and talk to people. I can go out to talk to anybody. I could establish a relationship with them, but it's the follow up with being intentional to that person as a friendship, right? And I've had to like teach myself to be intentional because there was a point in time in my life where I realized that, hey, I'm not being an intentional person. Like, it was more of a, hey, this person benefited me this way, but I haven't benefited them, right? And so now I live my life of as a servant leader. I want to see what I can do to help you. I'm in a mastermind group that's got over 2,000 people in it. And not once have I ever asked, like, hey, somebody buy a roof from me. It's more, hey, what can I do to help you? So it's being intentional on serving others, and that's going to build relationships for you. It's being intentional on asking the right questions of that person of like, hey, I know you're in this line of work. Who can I refer you to? Same thing with my banker and my bonding guys. I send them a lot of people that want their services. And so I've had to be really intentional on being that friend, not just an acquaintance.
I love that. It's so important to be intentional and have your every 45-day follow up, in a calendar. It's one of the documents I give to my members. It's like, every 45 days, you need to be dropping a text or a call, just checking in on that person because you don't know how valuable that could be. You mentioned mastermind now twice. Curious, what masterminds have benefited you the most spiritually, in business, as a man, as a husband?
Yes, so I'm part of two masterminds, and one of them's a very small, intimate group called Truth at Works. It's a Christian CEO roundtable group called Truth at Works, and there's I think there's 13 of us in this roundtable, and we get everything is centered around a Christ-driven life. A God-driven life, being spiritual in our business, spiritual in our relationships, spiritual in our marriage, our family life, everything that revolves around that. And so spiritually, I go to Truth at Works. That is my intimate piece when I need to sit and talk with people, not just about spiritually, Jesus and God and stuff like that. It's more like, hey, I need to talk to these guys on an intimate level, right? Whether it's my marriage, whether it's my friendships, whether it's my business, whatever it may be. And then I've got another mastermind group that I'm a part of that is called Apex Break Free Academy. Ryan Stuman runs that one, and I think there's 2,000 plus people in that group, and that's my social group. I like to be in social settings. I was recently at their awards ceremony just last week, sat at the table. Hell, I sat at the table with Ryan Stuman, and I got another guy, Brandon Brittingham, and these guys are just crushing it, in business, and that's where I get my social fix, right? As being around those people, and but I also live that servant leadership to those people as well. I do everything I can. There's I'll give you an example. I've got a surf boat that I bought my wife, and we had a fly-in Friday. We go in quarterly for 2 days up to Dallas, and we all come together at Apex Break Free Academy. And I said, hey guys, I'm gonna bring my boat up, and after we get done for the day, if y'all want to go out on the lake, let's go out and hang out, right? Whoever wants to come, we'll do some surf sessions and just hang out, right? The first night I had some people come out. There was probably 6 of us, and then the second night, the second day, the Friday, Ryan's like Mariana is the lady that is pretty much she runs everything for him. She's like, hey, we want to go out on the boat with you. I was like, who's we? She's like, oh, Ryan and Brandon and these people and Chris and I was like, cool, bring them on. But when I brought them on and they came out on the lake with us, like it was nothing about business for me. Like, it was intentionally to be there for them to be able to relax, have fun, have a good time, and do something that they haven't done in a while.
Yeah.
And man, honestly, that established a rapport with those guys that, you know, they're like, man, they're like, bro, we haven't done something like this in so long. It was just refreshing to be able to go out and not have people bombard us about business and stuff like that. And so I've established a really good relationship with a lot of those people. And, you know, there's a bunch of killers in there, and they're just a wealth of knowledge and a bunch of givers in there that give back to the community. And, you know, you find out real quick who the givers and who the takers are. And we weed those takers out real quick. So.
Amen. Love that. You know, you are who you surround yourself with. I'm a firm believer. You got to be in masterminds to level up, to get to the next level. Without masterminds, you know, we hang out with the people we know, we love and trust, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if we want to be warriors, bigger, better versions of ourselves, we have to surround ourselves with those types of men. Good for you, dude. So you might not have an answer to this because you're doing a lot of commercial and government, but it sounds like you got a lot of referral based business. Have you ever come across a situation where you have to have like a local office in order to bid? And if so, how'd you overcome that? And if you don't,
I've never come across that situation of having to have a local office. You know, especially on any federal work, I've never had to have that. So no, I haven't had to have that really. Usually it's just been, even on our municipality work, you know, once they trust us, they trust us. And if we got to travel there, they understand, you know.
Sure. Curious about your subcontract agreements. What are some key elements that you put inside of it to protect your company? Now we're going to move into protecting your company and that topic. Talk about your subcontract agreement and clearly defining the roles.
So yeah, we do clearly define roles, you know, for our subcontractors, is that, hey, here is your specific scope of work, right? We outline that in great detail. And then we make them, you know, make sure that they understand that they are our sub. You know, they're not the sub of the prime or the GC or whoever it may be. They are our sub, and they are to be directed by our staff, our production staff, not another company. And I think that's very important, because there's a lot of guys that will just go out there and say, well, you know, so-and-so from the GC company, you know, told me that we need to do this. Well, that may not be part of our scope of work. And then they're expecting to get paid for it, right? If it's not clearly defined in our scope of work that, hey, we're doing this or not doing this, then it leaves room for interpretation. So we have to be very clear on what our scope of work is and what's excluded from that. You know, another thing too, I do is a NDA. There's a non-disclosure agreement in our subcontracts, and we do a master subcontract agreement. You know, so and then we do issue POs outside of that. But in our master, it has an NDA because, you know, there's a level of trust there that when you're going out to my job, even though we have our staff there as well, you know, I don't want you going behind my back and trying to undercut us or, you know, steal the work or anything like that. But never had that happen, but you still have to have that protection in there. Every contract is developed, every contract you have, any verbiage in there is always developed out of a scenario that happened to you, right? Every time a scenario happens to me, I'm like, hey man, we need to go add this into our subcontract or even our contract, you know, for owners, whatever it may be. Another thing I do is that I think is important to me is that our work is our work. As the prime roofing contractor or whichever contract, you know, whatever scope of work we may be doing, that work is our work. You know, and so publicizing that, you know, I don't care if my subcontractors publicize it, but it needs to be along the basis of, hey, we're working with the roof co, and this is the job we're doing, not this is our job. Because I see so many guys say like, oh, you know, we're doing this roof, and I'm like, okay, well, who are you doing it for? Because you need a spotlight, you know, who you're doing the job for too, because it's only fair for them that, you know, even though you're doing the work, if you're just labor only, it's not technically just the entire job is your job. You know, spotlighting who you're working for is important because, you know, it's only fair to them. You know, it is their work. and you shouldn't make it seem as such that it's only your job.
So you alluded to how you protect your company. You have your subcontractors, and we're about to get deep, listeners, contractors. Let us know where you're listening in from, because this is very important, what you're about to learn. Austin, talk to us about how you protect your company. You have subcontractors you've done business with in the past, but still, do you have a man there? Do you have a team there? Are you making them take photos throughout this process? How are you protecting to cover CYA, cover your tail?
Yeah, so that's very important. You know, in most federal government jobs, you got to have an established superintendent on the site, or a QA, project manager, different things like that, safety, depending on, you know, what level you're at in the job, right? No matter what, if it's a commercial municipality, or if it's a federal contract, I have a full-time superintendent that is one of my employees that has been with me for years on that project as a superintendent, and they're watching the project every step of the way. They're my my superintendent and my QA and safe, if we can combine them all together, if it's allowed. And so now, depending on the crew, you know, and the level of the job, then I there's sometimes allow, you know, because if you think about it as a commercial roofing contractor, if you've got 20 contracts out there and they all hit at the same time, you're going to have 20 superintendents on each individual job. No, it's hard to do that. You know, but what I will do is, like, you know, we use an app called Company Cam.
Yep.
You know, it's very familiar in the roofing industry. If it's a sub crew that I trust, then I will put them on as a collaborator to upload photos, and they know that they've got to upload photos. Basically, oh gosh, what am I trying to say? The level of detail has to be that, you know, when they take pictures from beginning to end, it should tell a story. Yep. Those pictures should be able to tell a story of, hey, this is what we accomplished. I should be able to look at those photos and know exactly what they accomplished from start to finish, end of the day. Yep. It shouldn't be so just vague that, you know, I don't know what happened. I'm having a call like, man, what did y'all even do today? You know,
right.
It should be able to tell a story. I should be able to know that they did X amount of squares. This is how much of the roof they did, and here's the level of detail of what all they got done. You know, but if it's something very specific, that's, you know, we got to have a high level of detail that to know that, like, our low-rise foam was 6 inches on center or 4 inches on center, all this different high level detail stuff. I'm going to have a dedicated guy there pretty much recording the entire job.
The dedicated film guy, he's got a tape measure, he's showing it 6 inches, he takes a photo of it.
Yes, because I can't tell you how many times, you know, engineers, architects, consultants come back and say, y'all didn't do it 6 inches on center. Yeah, we did. I got
here's a photo. Right. Yep.
Yeah, and that's important. Right. Documentation is key. And so again, it depends on the job. If it's a commercial job that's just private outside, you know, then I'll have a superintendent checking in on it while they're out on other jobs. So
sure. So curious about contractor construction schedule, your schedule of values, and using the percentage complete method. How are you doing that to where you're getting money on the front end and being able to build a government quickly to where you don't have to wait forever? What are some of your strategies and techniques using percentage complete method, schedule values, and or the contractor construction schedule?
You know, I've always used AIA schedule of values. And honestly, this is something that I've been, you know, our company is very, we have not been very good at is billing, invoicing. And what I mean by that is, like, we get so dang busy. We grew so fast and we got so busy. We don't have somebody dedicated to just that. Right. And it was my wife, and me doing it. And so, you know, we get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. And so sometimes we forget to bill, and, you know, they're like, hey, it's 5 o'clock on the 25th. You're supposed to have it in at 3 o'clock. Sorry about your luck, you know, type thing. And it just is what it is. But what we've done now, like I said earlier, is, Q4, we've really focused on getting the organizational piece of our company honed in. And so we invested into getting a software called Foundation, and follow up. So it's estimating edge, follow up, Foundation, project HQ, and they all talk to each other. And what's really cool about Foundation is it has a built-in AIA schedule of values in it. It has a database with all of the prevailing wages in it.
Wow.
It has certified payroll built into it. So everything's built into the job. So by the time you estimate it, you have all the hours and everything in here. Goes into follow-up. It goes right into project or Foundation, which tracks every bit of that. It is meant for commercial and government contracting. And then project HQ does the same thing. It talks back and forth to each other.
What should we budget for all those? Those apps, those softwares?
Man, we invested about 30 grand. I think it's about 30
gotta
grand.
pay to play, baby. Gotta pay to play.
Yeah. It's about, I think we spent about, I think we paid, I think it's about 20 grand. I think 15 grand was all the implementation and everything and setup and all that crap. And then, we paid for several months. But I think it's like 3,500 a month.
Oh my God, contractors listening in. Hey, when you join my federal construction university, I got something, an Excel spreadsheet. I'll give you for free. You don't have to, dude. We use this Excel spreadsheet, and it's very effective. But good for you. You got an app, and I'm glad it's working.
But that entire software takes place of all our QuickBooks. It takes place of all of our AP, AR, payroll, everything like that. Like it's our entire accounting system. So I mean, it's more than just your AI.
Okay. Yeah, it's very detailed. It sounds like it has your whole collections, billings, payroll.
Like I can bill when my superintendents are out on a job, it actually does geofencing, and it'll actually track their time and bill it to that job along with whatever truck they're in. Because I mean, you need a bill. You've got to be able to bill and to truly track your efficiency and are you bidding a job right? You got to know a cost of the job. And so, for me, I've got tons of employees. I've got tons of vehicles out there. When I say tons, it feels like tons to me. We've got 10 employees. We're about to hire on a couple more. I've got a fleet of 10 trucks. But there's a cost to all of that, right? And so I've got to be able to know at the end of the day, when we bid a job and those guys are going out to the job, there's cost associated to that for that truck, right? For that superintendent. And we've got to be able to track it to that job to know that at the end of the day, when we finish that job, hey, did we went over budget because of this, right? And so did we go over budget because we screwed up on estimating, or did our production crew screw up, right? Did they take too long when they could have been more efficient? Did they waste materials? Did they waste time? Whatever it may be. And so data is king, right? We hear that in business, data is king. And that's pretty much what this software does. It collects every bit of data that you can think of. And that's super imperative for a company that's, has a ton of employees and, is looking to grow and wants to be efficient.
I want to talk to you about that in just a sec, about all your company trucks, because I've learned a lot having this podcast on how contractors are using a truck as its own business, which we'll talk about in just a sec. But before we do, I'm curious, change orders. Have you had what's your experience with change orders and ups, goods, bads?
Yeah, man, word of advice, don't just take somebody's word for it. Like, hey man, bill it to us. Get it in writing first. Like, I don't care. I've been screwed over so many times that, we do something different and they're like, hey, just bill it into us. I'll send you approval later, whatever it may be. And then they forget about it. You forget about it. You move on and you send an invoice in and they're like, what the heck is this for? Well, that change order you approved. Well, did you get it in writing? Then you start going down that road. Right. And so again, this goes back to the documentation piece. And you got to be very clear, cut and clear with your production team that, hey, here's the scope of work. Here's what we're doing. If it's outside of this, get an approved change order. And that's the cool thing about our this new foundation software that we've got is if it's a change order, send it to them real quick. You can send it to them real quick, and you can put on their price to be determined or time and material, whatever it may be. But then you can get it approved. You know, they can sign off on it.
Any final words of advice for somebody going after government contracts?
Make sure your finances are in order. Finances are huge. You know, being able to have accessibility to cash flow, a job, because you're not going to get money right up front. You know, and don't go after it as if it's a retail bid. You know, these jobs take a level of skill. It takes a level of documentation. There's a ton of red tape. You got to have dedicated employees to that job. You know, especially when it comes to safety, having all your safety documentation in place. You know, I in-house all that. You know, I buy all the safety equipment. I buy all that stuff. We have our own safety documents and everything like that. I don't outsource it all. You know, when my subs come in, I don't make them put a safety plan together. I put it all together, and you adhere to my safety plan.
Nice. You got a
know,
CQC plan that you actually write instead of just
Yes.
farming it out to somebody on Upwork.
Yes. So, you know, that's the biggest thing is, man, know that you're prepared to go for it. And the biggest thing behind that is finances. Because if you don't have your finances in order and you can't cash flow, if you know ahead of time that you can't cash flow that job, don't even go after it.
Now, final two questions. Regarding government work, I'm curious about your process. You bid the job, you get the phone call, you get the award, and now you got to perform. Walk us through in just a few sentences how you can, you know, you assign your, like you look at it, okay, this is how we figured out our price. All right, these are the submittals. All right, here's how we're going to get it done. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so that's our SOP. That's what I was looking for earlier. SOP, standard operating procedure. You know, we talk about them all the time. I couldn't remember the dang name. So our SOP is, you know, we obviously get the contract right. And I try not to let them issue a NTP, a notice to proceed, until we have all submittals in place and approved, and we have an order placed. So the SOP is you get a contract in, it goes in, gets issued a project number, and then we have a sit down meeting, you know, with our production team, whoever the estimator was, if it was me or somebody else. We go over the project. Hey, here's the scope of work. Here's our job. Here's our budget for materials. Here's our budget for labor, everything like that. This is what we're expecting the job to take. And here's our timeline. And then from there, production gets their side handled. And then we get, you know, the sales team, estimating team, they get all their submittals put in. And then, like I said, I try not to get an NTP until we've got materials on the way or on the ground.
Brilliant. So that way you have your discovery call, you find out your price in, how the estimator figured out the price, you figure out the timeline, you get all your submittals done, and then you request the NTP. So that way it's turnkey and you're ready to go instead of like frantically trying to figure it out last minute.
Right.
Final question regarding federal contracts. Shine some lights on the benefits, the good, the revenue that this has brought to you. How has it impacted you in a positive way for you and your family financially?
You know, for us, it's benefited us because, you know, when you have, you know, Texas is a hail-prone area, right? But we haven't had a whole lot of storms in Texas this year.
Right.
Nothing that's, I would say, sizable and like detrimental when it comes to hail, right? There's been little pockets here and there, but man, every freaking roofer I knew traveled down here to come to them.
Yep.
You know, and where it really sets you apart, not just with federal government, you know, contracting, but municipalities, is there's a level of financial responsibility, a level of detail, a level of establishment that you have to be at to be able to do those jobs. And it kind of secures you and sets you apart from the competition You know, and in times when it gets slow like this, you know, because I hear a lot of people are slow right now. You know, government contracts aren't ever, you know, they're always going to need a roof. Roofing is always going to be there. Construction is always going to be there, and the government's always going to find a way to spend money on that.
Yeah.
They've got to keep their assets protected. They're not just going to let their assets deplete, right, or deteriorate. And so it's always going to be there. And so that's why I've diversified myself to be able to go after those contracts, because I know it's always going to be there. You know, even though it's a pain in the butt sometimes, it's always going to be there. And, you know, it's, I would say that the money in it, you know, it is good depending on, again, the level of what the job is. You know, for hood jobs, I really don't care to go after, just because, you know, there's guys out there bidding them cheap, you know, and so it's really finding the ones that are, like you said, the rural jobs, the ones that are out of the way that nobody really wants to do. That's the ones I'm going after.
What's a job where you made a good amount of a healthy profit margin? Tell us that story, and what you got it for, what type of profit you made.
So I've currently got a job right now. It's not a federal job. It is a municipality job, but it was an insurance job. They got, during the freeze from Texas, they got, you know, flooded and stuff like that. And, you know, we ended up around, I'd say 1.8 million on the job. You know, we'll have about $1 million in cost, if not a little bit less in it.
So blessed. You're so blessed. You're helping people out. You're getting your bounties.
Yeah. You know, I will tell you that a lot of that is being able to, it's not like we screwed over the insurance. We bid everything per the insurance, you know, through Xactimate and all that different stuff, right? But it was about being able to, you know, efficiently use our labor contractors and our labor force to get the job done more efficiently. You know, and instead of having to sub out to all these different companies, like actual bigger companies, and we were able to accomplish the job and make really good money on the job. You know, so
I love that. On round two, we're going to be diving into your business. We'll be diving into your processes. We'll be diving into your insurance restoration. But for now, man, you delivered the goods, Austin. You shared, you know, your federal construction insights. You shared, you know, how you protect your company. And this has been a blast, brother. I appreciate your time from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for being on the Real Construction Owners podcast today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.